Guys, this door right here, it sends you into the Twilight Zone. It's the most insane thing. I've been playing with it all day long. Hi everybody, my name's King Noosme. I asked you guys what episode of the Twilight Zone you wanted to see me talk about, and it was a close race, but Nightmare at 20,000 feet squeaked it out, and I can't say that I'm surprised. This is probably the most iconic episode of the Twilight Zone, and it's probably best if I go ahead and get it out of the way early in my Twilight Zone series. But before we get into the episode, let's talk about the series for those who somehow don't know. The Twilight Zone is one of the most iconic and influential TV shows of all time. It was the inspiration for pretty much every anthology horror or sci-fi show that came after it. And it was also the main inspiration for the Treehouse of Horror episodes in The Simpsons. And also a ton of video games, for example, Alan Wake. As well as movies like Jacob's Ladder, Poltergeist, and my favorite movie of all time, The Truman Show. Needless to say, the Twilight Zone's kind of a big deal. I mean, it's so big it even has a ride at Disney World. And it's so popular that they tried to reboot the series multiple times in the 80s, early 2000s, and in 2019. But sadly, none of them could capture the same magic of the original. The Twilight Zone was created in 1959 by the genius Rod Serling. It aired for 5 seasons in 5 years, with 156 episodes in the original series, with Rod himself writing 92 of the 156. It aired on CBS, and it was filmed and aired entirely in black and white because at the time it wasn't common to have color TVs, and also the show was pretty expensive to film, so they were saving a bit of money by not shooting it in color. The show is seen as timeless, and it was designed that way. At the time, censorship was pretty harsh on TV, so Serling would use the show as a vehicle to comment on more controversial material that sponsors would usually censor out. And the episodes got through because they were disguised as science fiction stories. Things like nuclear war, mass hysteria, and racism were all tackled in the show, and these things were usually avoided in primetime TV. Like I said earlier, we're going to be watching and breaking down the truly iconic episode of the 5th season, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. Even if you haven't seen this episode, you've probably seen a parody or a joke about it in some way. It's been referenced in a ton of shows, like The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segment, Terror at 5.5 Feet, as well as Johnny Bravo. It's been on SNL twice, The Muppets, the Lego Batman movie, Futurama, Ace Ventura, Madagascar 2, and many more. It was also remade twice by Twilight Zone itself, once in the 80s for the Twilight Zone movie, and again in the 2019 series. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, we're going to be checking out all 3 of them. No, you don't have to applaud me. I love to break down the same story 3 times, especially the 2019 one. That one's actually very different. But before we jump into the episode, the story is one of the few that Serling did not write himself. It's actually a short story written by Richard Matheson. He wrote it for the anthology book Alone by Night, and the short story shares a name with the episode, and they're close enough in story that I'll just point out the differences along the way, and I've talked enough, so let's quit yapping and get into the episode. We start this episode by meeting our main character, Robert Wilson, played by the one and only William Shatner. He's most famous for being Captain Kirk in the Star Trek series, but he's also in another Twilight Zone episode. He's in the season 2 episode The Nick of Time as Don Carter. He's accompanied by his wife Julia, who is played by Christine White, and she was also in the episode The Prime Mover. Robert is coming home from a sanatorium because of a mental breakdown he had on another flight. So putting him on a plane to fly back home is obviously the smartest thing to do. You'd think they'd like drive him back or something, or put him on a bus at least, you know, like don't put him back in a plane. But hopefully Julia being there will keep him calm enough this time around so he doesn't end back up in the sanatorium. Robert notices that he's seated next to the emergency exit, which seems to worry him a bit. But he tells Julia that it's not the window itself, but the whole plane has him worried. So worried, in fact, that bro almost lights a cigarette right there on the spot. I forgot that people used to be allowed to do that. It's like incredibly dangerous. And gross. It's really gross, too. Imagine having to breathe in all that secondhand smoke because you're trapped in a plane with somebody. But luckily, Julia calls Robert out for it, and he quickly puts his cigarette out.
Honey, don't smoke that now. Wait till the plane takes off.
I'm not acting much like a cured man, am I?
He's obviously very nervous for the flight, and he's worried that he isn't cured, but Julia assures him that if he wasn't okay to fly, then the doctor would not let him out. I almost wonder if they're making him fly to get over his fear or something like that. And he seemed to be slightly okay with flying. That is until they shut the door to the plane. And as he buckles himself up, he tries to talk himself down from his anxiety, and we pan over to Rod, who's giving his monologue about
Portrait of a Frightened Man.
Mr. Robert Wilson, 37, a husband, a father, and a salesman currently on sick leave. Because 6 months ago, on an evening not too different from now, on a different flight, he had a mental breakdown that landed him in a sanitarium. But it's after 6 months of rehabilitation that he's finally feeling much better and is now able to fly back home. The only problem is his destination for this flight is not home, but instead is
the darkest corner of the Twilight Zone.
That's not right. No, I'm supposed to be covering Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? Where am I? What is this place? This is not where I was supposed to be. Am I in the Twilight Zone? King Newsme, what have you done?
Sorry about that. I went back in the door a second ago and I was like messing around with like my videos and the YouTube algorithm, not to help me do better or anything. God, that would be horrible. But I got lost somehow and then I ended up at Poltergeist's channel. No, this isn't the right channel. Where did I go wrong? Maybe we should just not post Twilight Zone videos on the same weekend anymore. That was really confusing. I also don't know where I sent him. I hope I sent him back to the right place.
Where am I?
Anyways, we fade back into the plane where we get our title card. We see that the plane is now flying through a pretty rough storm, which has Robert extremely nervous. Sadly, his wife took a sleeping pill and she is clocked out. So much for being there to support him. And Robert has his window open so he can keep an eye out on the storm. And while looking out the window, Robert spots a strange looking creature move in from the shadows of the wing. He watches in terror as the creature slowly crawls towards him, as if it's just as curious about him as he is about it. Robert calls for the flight attendant to show her the weird dude on the wing, but when she gets there, he's gone. Thinking he's having some hallucination or something, he asks the attendant for some water. And as she fetches that for him, Julia wakes up and questions him about what's going on. But he just kind of brushes it off that he just needs some sleep, so he takes a sleeping pill and tries to ignore what he just saw. That's a weird paper cup. Kind of looks like a McDonald's fry container. Do they always look like that? I thought that they had just normal paper cups back then. King discovers cups aren't always the same. Anyways, just before Robert catches some Z's, he decides to take one last look out the window just to be certain that what he saw wasn't actually there. And when he takes a peek, what he finds is far more terrifying. The monster is pressed up against the window, staring Robert down, letting him know that he is real and he knows that Robert saw him. Once again, Robert calls over the flight attendant, but by the time she gets there, the beast is gone. He plays it off like he's just scared of the storm that they're flying through, just so the flight attendant doesn't send him back to the insane asylum. But just as soon as she walks away, the freaky creature flies back onto the wing, taunting Robert. As he watches, the creature messes with the propellers of the plane and starts to peel back one of the plane's panels, revealing the wires to the engine. In a panic, he wakes his wife up to try and show her the man on the wing, but once again, like a fairy, the man flies away. He tries to be honest with Julia and tell her what he saw outside just moments ago. He explains that he saw a man on the wing, but it's not exactly a man. It's more like a gremlin, like the fighter pilots claim they witnessed during the wars. Julia looks very concerned about her husband in this moment because he does sound quite insane.
Do I look insane?
Yeah?
No, darling, no.
I mean, no, not at all. He tells Julia that he knows he had a mental breakdown in a plane and it seems like it's happening again, but he's telling the truth. And Julia claims that she believes her husband, but her face is saying otherwise. He tells her
There's a man out there.
and that he disappears anytime anybody can get a glimpse of him. He just wants Julia to ask the pilots if they can keep an eye on the wings, and if they don't see anything on them, then he'll commit himself back to the asylum. Obviously, she doesn't want her husband to go back into the asylum, so she offers to go forward with his plan. And while she grabs the pilot, the gremlin comes back again, making Robert panic and yell for the pilot to hurry and see the monster. The pilot tries to figure out what's going on with him, so he gives him the quickest rundown he can.
There's a man out there.
Yeah, that's pretty quick. Good job. But when the pilot takes a look outside, you'll never guess what happens. Yeah, he's gone. He's gone again. I don't know what you would expect. But then something strange happens with the pilot. The pilot lets Robert know that he's seen the gremlin too, and that they're trying to keep it on the down low so they don't scare the other passengers. At first, things seem to make sense to Robert, but he quickly realizes that they're just treating him as if he were still in the sanatorium. This very obviously angers Robert to the point where he dismisses the pilot and promises not to say another word about the man on the wing.
I won't say another word. I'll see us crash first.
Bob.
Damn, bro. Not to be a downer. Robert is starting to get very frustrated that nobody believes him. And even worse, the gremlin keeps pulling random cords out of the engine, which isn't helping the situation. And after a moment, his wife comes back, and of course the gremlin flies away again, and she gives Robert a pill that will put him to sleep for the rest of the flight. So Robert pretends to take it in front of her so that she can go back to sleep and he can continue to obsess over our little friend on the wing. Robert watches as the gremlin rips more of the engine's wires out, and he turns to see that a passenger behind him has a pistol on him. And with this knowledge, he hatches up a plan. Robert gets up and very slyly acts like he dropped something on the floor. I almost didn't notice he did that. And while he's on the ground, he very sneakily steals the poor guy's gun. How do you even see the gun from his seat? He would have to turn his head like an owl, like 180 degrees to see that. He's on the other side of the aisle. What the hell? He sneaks the gun back to his seat, straps himself down to the chair, and prepares himself for probably the dumbest decision of his life. He asks his wife Julia to go grab him another glass of water so she doesn't get hurt in the process, and he takes a deep breath and prepares himself. He opens the emergency window, blasting him out of the window. He fights the powerful winds that are pulling him out of the plane, aims the gun at the gremlin, and shoots it multiple times before passing out from a lack of oxygen. The next scene we watch as Robert is carried off the plane in a stretcher and into a car that sends him back to the sanatorium. Everyone around him thinks he's gone insane once again, but they'll learn very soon that he actually saved their lives. And we end off the episode with a Rod Serling monologue. He says that Robert is now over his fear of reoccurring mental breakdowns because he knows what he saw, even if it's not apparent to everyone else immediately. And that's where the episode ends. This episode is very strange because not much happens, but at the same time, a lot happens. This episode definitely uses suspense at its fullest potential, and it's known as one of the best and scariest episodes of the whole series for this reason. I know the gremlin doesn't look scary compared to monsters nowadays, but at the time this terrified people. And even if you watch this episode by yourself in a dark room at like 3 a.m., he's actually the scariest motherfucker you've ever seen in your life. And I know from experience. I don't think I've mentioned this before, maybe in like a stream or something, but I used to watch the Twilight Zone before school. As I got ready for school, I'd have it on the TV. So I would record most of the episodes since I was at school when they were on TV during the day. And one night I couldn't sleep, and so I decided to just pop on an episode of the Twilight Zone to hopefully help me sleep. And it didn't help me sleep at all. I actually had a nightmare because of this little furry guy. Kind of crazy how that works, right? But the music and suspense really helped this episode a whole lot. The Twilight Zone always has great music, but this episode they've seemed to step it up a lot, and they really take their time and let emotions build up where you start to go slightly insane with Robert. I mean, it's actually infuriating when the gremlin flies away like a ballerina because you want someone to believe Robert, but nobody will. And it's just such an unfortunate situation with Robert being fresh out of a sanatorium and him already being a bit scared of flying, and now he seems to be hallucinating a man on the wing of this airplane. It just sucks. It sucks all around for that guy. But a really, really impactful episode. Now, like I said earlier, the story and the episode are pretty similar, but there are some really big differences as well. For one, Robert is on the plane alone in the story, but he does mention having a wife and kids, but we never see them in the story. He also didn't come from a sanatorium in the story, he's just scared of flying. He also brought the gun that he would use to kill the gremlin at the end of the story. The gremlin described in the story does match the one in the show with the furry arms and the man-like body, but of course he's described to be more grotesque. And Richard Matheson himself even complained about what the gremlin looked like in this episode. He said it looked more like a panda, and he's not wrong. That's a really good description, actually. But they remade the story again in 1983 with the Twilight Zone movie. It's the last segment of the 4 in the movie, and the segment was directed by the famous George Miller, who's directed some amazing movies like all the Mad Max movies and even the Happy Feet movies. God, I haven't seen the Happy Feet movie in so many years. I need to go watch those. Those are bangers. The 1983 movie overall has a different tone than the rest of the series. It's a little, wackier than the series, that's for sure. And you'll see what I mean when we start talking about the story. And I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's quit yapping and get into it. We start this story by seeing the plane flying through a terrible thunderstorm, as the narrator introduces us to our main character, John Valentine. He's played by John Lithgow, who you might know as Dr. Dick on Third Rock from the Sun, or Lord Farquaad in Shrek, or the Trinity Killer in Dexter. Dexter has absolutely ruined this guy for me. Every time he's in anything at all, I just see this weird-ass, horrifying serial killer, and I hate it, because he looks like such a nice guy. John is absolutely terrified of flying. He's hiding in the bathroom having a massive panic attack, especially because they're about to hit a bad part of the storm. And a couple of flight attendants are trying to help get John out of the bathroom so he can buckle up in his seat and be safe. So John takes a couple of pills to hopefully calm himself down and braves the flight like a man.
Are you okay?
No problem.
Not a problem. Yeah, man, you totally don't look like you're gonna pass out at any moment. The flight attendant tells John that he's actually safer in the air than on the ground. So there's really nothing he should be worried about. But this is when we learn that John is a literal genius and he already knows this. He starts spitting out statistics about different accidents that happen around the world and how the likelihood of him dying in the air is so low, but that doesn't help his irrational fear. That's why they're called irrational. One of the attendants offers John a sedative to help him get some sleep, but he turns it down.
I'll be all right.
This will cost you $4.
Damn, we got a little hustler on the plane. Okay, I see you, little girl. John lights up a cigarette to calm himself down. The only issue is the pilot asked earlier that no one smoke while they're going through the storm. So our little hustler kindly reminds John with a dummy,
NOSMOKING. No smoking.
and John doesn't seem to care at all until this massive man mean mugs him until he puts his cigarette out. I don't blame him. That guy's kind of scary. I'm not gonna lie. I'm all of 130 pounds. He would kill me. Terrified with nothing to do, John takes a glance out of the window and spots something crawling across the wing. Thinking it's just his imagination, he wipes his eyes and puts on his glasses and looks again. Damn, that dude got struck by lightning and acted like it tickled him. Look at this. John causes an absolute panic in the cabin of the plane, shouting, "There's a man on the wing of this plane!" Everyone rushes to see the man on the wing, but of course, he's not there. He tries his best to convince everyone that he was not lying, but after a long-winded explanation, he gives up and takes the sedative that the attendant offered him earlier. He thanks the attendant for the pill and tries to get some sleep, but the thought that someone or something could be out there on the wing keeps him up. He can't help himself, but he just needs to make sure what he saw wasn't really there. In an absolute panic, he starts screaming on the plane again, and they have to tackle him to the ground. Side note, there is a brief moment where you can actually see John's eyes pop out of his head. It's insanely quick, but like a nice touch to the scene. I kind of miss when movies did stuff like this to just add emphasis to stuff. While pinned to the ground, John spots that the bigger fella has a pistol strapped to his ankle. John tries to tell the pilot that they need to land the plane because there's a man on the wing, but the pilot obviously doesn't believe him, so John asks if he could just look out of the window. And when he looks, nothing is there. The pilot tries to reason with John. He tells him that he's trying to keep everyone safe during a severe thunderstorm, and John's antics are threatening the safety of the passengers. And if he doesn't calm down, then they'll have to handcuff him for the rest of the ride. But this threat doesn't really scare John because if they don't do something, they could die.
That's D-I-E, die!
Then the two have a short, calm conversation about how lightning struck the first engine of the plane and that they lost it. But they have 3 other engines to keep them in the air, and on top of that, the likelihood that the other engines will be struck is extremely low. And they just have 20 minutes of the flight until they land, so everything is going to be okay. But right after that conversation, they hit some major turbulence, and this causes everyone to freak out. Well, not everyone. John takes another peek out the window and he finds out exactly why there is so much bad turbulence. The gremlin on the wing is messing with the flaps, shaking them up and down over and over again. All right, I'm already gonna spoil something. I love this gremlin much more than the other one. He's so goofy compared to the other one. After a couple more minutes of the terrifying turbulence and the gremlin messing with John, John has had enough and he takes the little girl's camera in hopes of capturing a picture of the creature. Sadly, he doesn't get a good picture, rather just a reflection of himself, and the gremlin taunts him and continues to throw random things into the engine of the plane. And this is when John knows that he has to save everyone, so he tries to smash the window, but right as he does this, he is tackled by the big guy with the gun. John knows he has a gun, so he wrestles his way out from under him, grabs his gun, and shoots the beast on the wing. This causes him to fly out of the plane window, and he takes this chance to get a couple more shots in at the monster. But the monster shows John that a few measly bullets won't hurt him, because the gremlin rushes towards John and literally eats the gun. Yes, he eats the gun. Then he grabs John's face almost like a warning, but then he smiles, wags his finger at him, and takes off with the wind.
And that's exactly how it happened.
I know. I just watched it. Everyone is freaked out and traumatized about what just happened, and while they try to gather their thoughts, a crew comes out to check on the plane, where they discover John was telling the truth the whole time.
Holy Toledo. Hey, you guys, what happened up there?
And that's basically the end of the story. I mean, there's an ambulance scene that ties the whole movie together, but you don't care about that. Yeah, this retelling is insane. Completely bonkers, as they would say in the 80s. Maybe, I don't know, I wasn't born in the 80s or around. I do really like this approach to the story though. While the first one was a bit more calm and grounded, this one was like a full-on panic attack the whole time. I mean, they do give you a few moments to breathe, but they're very brief. And I know this is probably a hot take, but I think I like this version more. Don't get me wrong, the OG is objectively better in a lot of ways, but this one makes you feel the panic coming from John, and everything is super over-exaggerated to him. They actually show that at the start of the segment. The flight attendant is calmly knocking on the door trying to goad him out of the bathroom, but to him it sounds like they're banging on the door trying to force him out.
Your cigarettes? Store anything that might fly about the aircraft?
It's just small details like that that make this segment hit hard. It's seriously what I imagine a panic attack feels like. Everything's so fast moving, so loud, something's happening all the time. Also, the gremlin in this is actually scary looking. He's hideous with sharp teeth and long fingernails and a tail. He looks like a monster, unlike his panda counterpart. I also think I like this segment more because the monster looks like he's having fun. Like when I imagine a gremlin, I do imagine the movie Gremlins, you know? And that's what the gremlin in this segment looks like he's doing. He's just messing with the plane because he thinks it's fun, and he's trying to mess things up just because he's a little rapscallion. Especially when he's like pulling the flap up and down. I think that's so funny. It's probably the funniest thing in the whole segment. They also did a bit better of a job following the story with this one in some ways. They of course changed the name of the main character to John Valentine, but he is alone on the plane, and it starts with a bathroom sequence that is in the story. The only few differences is the monster is less human and more beast-like in this, but in the story he is like a perfect mixture of a beast and a human. And once again, just like the first episode, John didn't bring his own gun onto the plane. Also, there's a little fun fact that I know some people have already typed a comment about, so go ahead and backspace your comment a little bit. I'm about to mention it. You know what I'm about to mention if you've already typed it. Go ahead, delete your comment. You can save yourself right now. There is a segment in the show Third Rock from the Sun where John Lithgow's character runs into William Shatner playing a man who is their leader, and he just got off a plane where he claims he saw something on the wing, and John's character says that the same thing happened to him one time.
So how was your trip, sir?
Horrifying at first. I looked out the window and I saw something on the wing of the plane. The same thing happened to me.
It's just a little funny hidden reference in the show. I honestly didn't know about it because I haven't seen Third Rock from the Sun, but when I found it online, I thought that was pretty funny. And another fun fact about this segment, they actually asked William Shatner to come back for the role in this segment, but sadly he had other commitments and couldn't do it. But it would have been really cool to see him do it again, but this time more exaggerated and crazy. But I'm not complaining. I think John Lithgow did an amazing job. He absolutely killed it, and I am not upset at all. Let me know what you think is better, the OG or the segment from the movie. Now let's move on to the 2019 version of the show with Jordan Peele and Simon Kinberg's version of the story. Their version is called Nightmare at 30,000 Feet. Wow, they added 10,000 more feet. I hope that means it's 10,000 times scarier. Spoiler alert, it's not. Now, I'm pretty certain if I do a full breakdown of this segment in my video, I will be strucken down and taken down by the copyright gods. So sadly, I won't be doing like a full breakdown, but I'll hit the important beats and talk about a few Easter eggs that appear in the segment. This time we follow an investigative reporter named Justin Sanderson, who is played by Adam Scott, who has appeared on the channel before in the movie Krampus. But he's best known for the show Severance, where he plays the main character, Mark. Justin is recognized outside the terminal by a man named Joe, who loves his work as an investigative reporter. Also in the scene, you can see Samir from the previous episode, the comedian, and the kid Oliver foreshadowed in this episode for the episode The Wonder Kind. Before boarding the plane, Justin calls his wife and they talk about a traumatic experience he had in Yemen that gave him PTSD, where his wife reminds him of a mantra that his therapist told him to repeat to himself whenever he's feeling nervous.
The past is the past.
Past is the past, and that will help me get through the now. That's right.
And before boarding the plane, Justin also points out an odd coincidence that he's going to be boarding flight 1015 on October 15th at 10:15 at night. So strange, it's almost like he's entering the Twilight Zone. Okay, that was a dumb joke. On the plane, Justin gives up his first class seat so a family can sit together, and he gets moved into coach. And while in his new seat, he finds an MP3 player hidden in the pocket of the seat. And we have a fun little Easter egg here as well. The MP3 player is made by the Whipple Company, which is a reference to the episode The Brain Center at Whipple's, an episode from the OG series about a company that fires most of their employees in favor of robots doing all the work. Justin also finds a pair of headphones in the other seat's pocket, and he listens to a podcast that's on the MP3 player. The title of this particular podcast episode is The Tragic Mystery of Northern Gold Star Flight 1015, which is the flight Justin is on right now. The podcast starts accurately describing things that are happening all around him, like the pilot's name and a thunderstorm brewing outside. And the worst part about this is, the podcast says that the flight is going to disappear in the night. And another fun Easter egg right here, the narrator's name is Rodman Edwards, which is an obvious reference to Rodman Edward Serling, aka Rod Serling. And at the start of the podcast, he also references other OG Twilight Zone episodes, one being The Arrival, an episode about a plane that lands without a crew or passengers aboard it, and it's basically just a retelling of The Flying Dutchman, and another episode, 22, an episode that follows a woman being treated at a hospital, but she keeps having a nightmare where she's taken down to the morgue, and a spooky nurse keeps telling her,
"Room for one more, honey."
Honestly, a pretty underrated episode. I remember liking that one a lot as a kid. And one last reference, for now, they're on the same airline as Robert in the original episode, Gold Star Airways. That's just fun. That's something I noticed. It's not even online anywhere. Okay, back to the episode. As they take off, Justin tries to get the dude beside him to listen to the podcast, but the guy gets grossed out about it because he doesn't want lice? What the fuck? As the dude is moving seats, the podcast correctly predicts a bird flying into the engine of the plane. Justin tries to tell a flight attendant about the bird, but the guy just kind of looks at him like he's crazy and then tells him to chill out, pretty much. Great, yeah, if that happened to me on a flight, I would feel so much safer. After the rude attendant leaves, Joe, the man from earlier, tells Justin that he used to be a pilot and they probably know about the incident, but they make things seem better than they actually are, just so people don't panic. And as they talk about this, their conversation is obviously overheard by this woman across the aisle from them. And when Joe leaves, Justin starts the podcast up again and hears that the flight went missing at 11:15, and the last words heard from the flight were,
"Good night, New York."
Justin looks at the time and it's already 10:31, so he has about 45 minutes to not let that happen. As the podcast moves on, Justin starts taking notes. The first hint is that something is interfering with the communications of the airline. So Justin takes a look around and finds two guys watching a game on their phone, and he asks them to turn it off because it's messing with stuff on the plane, but of course they say no. I kind of don't blame them. I mean, if a random dude came up to me and was like, "Stop doing that thing you're doing right now," I would probably say no as well. I'd be like, "Who are you? Why are you telling me stuff?" And since that didn't work, the next hint was that a Russian citizen testifying against the Russian mafia is also on the flight, and there is an undercover air marshal there to keep him safe. After asking around for a little bit, a flight attendant tells Justin that she doesn't know if there's an air marshal on the flight. Even if she did, she wouldn't know who it is. So he takes matters into his own hands and starts snooping through the Russian guy's stuff, which was a very bad idea. It causes a massive scene and makes the pilot himself come out to calm everyone down and make everyone get back in their seats. And along the way, Justin finds out that he is the last person of interest for the plane's disappearance. A lot more time has passed now, and they only have 14 minutes to figure something out. Donner, the pilot, and Justin have a conversation at the back of the plane, where Justin explains to him everything that's happening because of the podcast, but this just lands Justin in handcuffs from the marshal, who is actually the woman listening to their conversation earlier. She sits Justin down and tries to reason with him, and she tells him that a podcast can't predict the future and he's being a bit crazy. But, of course, this doesn't work. The marshal and pilot Donner leave to discuss the situation, and this is when Joe sneaks his way beside Justin once again. Joe tells Justin that he believes everything Justin's been saying to all these people, and that he can land the plane and save everyone. But in order to do that, he needs the combination to the door, which changes every time they lift off. Justin tells him with full confidence that the code is 1015, because that's the number that's been reappearing all night. Joe trusts Justin, and he tells him that the pressure in the cabin is going to be very intense when they're going down, so he gives Justin a special face mask to keep him awake. Then Joe heads for the cockpit. Joe puts the code in, and we watch on the monitors as he brutally beats the crap out of all the pilots and takes control of the plane. And this is when Joe lets his true colors show. He goes full villain and thanks Justin for giving him an excuse to finally find his opportunity for peace. Then Joe radios in and says the words that have been haunting Justin this whole time.
Good night, New York.
And as he does this, Justin just has to accept the fact that there was nothing he could have done to stop this from happening. It was just his fate to make the plane crash. The next day, we see Justin wake up on the beach with another Easter egg. This time, it's one of the gremlin in a doll form washed up on the beach. I really like this Easter egg, honestly. I kind of want a gremlin doll like that. I'd put him like somewhere in my setup. I want it so bad. I know they have action figures and stuff. I might get one. Honestly. I kind of like it. I want that guy. I want him right here, or right here, or right here. Justin finds his MP3 player once again and finishes the podcast. It is revealed that everyone else has been found on a remote island just 4 months later. Everyone except for Justin. He looks around as all the passengers angrily walk towards him. He pleads for his life and he tells them that he saved them, but the people swarm him and beat him to death. Yeah, that one is somehow lamer and darker than the other two. What an ending, holy shit. It's honestly not a bad episode at all. Just like the OG, it's super suspenseful and it does a great job at it. And the more you listen to the clues from the podcast, the more tense things get, and you can actually see it and feel it in Justin's face. I do think they kind of dragged the episode out a bit though. They had to fill an hour of time, so a lot of the time it's just Justin kind of walking around looking scared for his life, and that does make the episode feel slow at times. And it's kind of hard to compare this episode to the others because it's not the same story. It's definitely inspired by the original, and it has a similar name and similar beats, and in this one the main character goes less insane, I would say. Like the other guys, the people were genuinely worried about their well-being because they were being pretty crazy. But in this one, this guy is kind of a nuisance to everyone around him. They also have a huge lack of, gremlins in this episode. Where are the gremlins? Yeah, they completely omit the whole part that made the first two episodes super fun and interesting, which was a bold choice to make, but it kind of ruined it for a lot of people. So yeah, compared to the other two, this episode is pretty lame, I'm not gonna lie. But the story on its own is really good. I really enjoyed it. If it didn't have the name slapped on it, I kind of would like this episode a lot. It's just kind of sad that it's forever going to be the worst one because they decided to name it Nightmare at 30,000 Feet. Let me know what you think about this episode or any of the episodes in the comments below. I have a Patreon. The $5 members get bonus content plus videos a day early, maybe some pictures of my cats, a Discord server, and your name right here on screen. Like the video if you like the video. Thank you for watching the video all the way through. I appreciate you all, and peace. Oh no, this is the end of the video. I gotta go forward. Forward!